Hi friend, thank you for returning to my channel. God bless you. To receive news updates, please click the bell symbol and subscribe to the channel. Sister Wives, the cost of dominance. Disclosure of Robyn and Kody's covert takeover. What does absolute hell mean to me? Observing a family break up on live television while one woman plays chess and the supposed patriarch lashes out like a child in emergency. It has always been messy on Sister Wives. However, what if several marriages aren't the only cause of the chaos? What if millions of people are watching a virtual coup strategy and control? There is no misinterpretation of Robyn Brown. She is not the quiet, amiable underdog she acts like. One dollhouse at a time, she is bringing a legacy family to ruin with her platinum credit card and white trash. Kody isn't a leader either. A crumbling statue of male weakness, he is fueled by ego and may even be a small amount of protein powder. This is no longer reality television. Emotional manipulation, psychological suspense, and actual people are all present. Through the screen you can sense the treachery. We're taking a closer look today. From Robyn's shady origins to her strategic rise to prominence. From Kody's unpredictable actions to a family that was left behind for the sake of control through fantasy. Every moment has a secret. There is a knife in every smile. The actual account of how one woman took the throne, the loss of a patriarch's crown, and the devastation caused by lies to the family. The truth is far worse than we ever could have anticipated, so if you believe you know the narrative, think again. Let's get started. It was never necessary to misunderstand Robyn Brown. She created a masterpiece of uncertainty. She perfected the craft as fans conjectured and made assumptions about her motivations. However, Robyn was the antithesis of polygamous royalty, whilst Christine was the opposite. The epitome of poverty among polygamists, reinforced by a rise in the budget. She arrived with less money, less education, and a cursory understanding of the true nature of plural marriage. However, she used manipulation to make up for her lack of heritage. Fanciful baubles, dolls, and journals of daydreamers. Robyn's shopping was purposeful, not irrational. She was marketing rather than buying. In the guise of down-home roots, her attire exuded manufactured nostalgia. However, Robyn was never at home. Even the informality of her discourse was being betrayed. Frequently utilized. Phrases like "it's just funny" and "really, really stupid" weren't sweet. It was deliberate disarmament. A display of simplicity that belies something far more sophisticated. Ambition. Robyn rushed into the household with a sense of entitlement, whereas Christine had graciously taken her place. She frequently interrupted, demanded center stage, and controlled the discourse. It would have been wiser to keep quiet. The idea of poverty in government was reinforced by insults that she lived on a property in Wyoming or Montana. Housing, as well as houses that are hardly fit for habitation. Nevertheless, she made fun of Janelle's motor home. Never would I. To me, that would be the epitome of hell. The hypocrisy was so obvious. Her modestly raised children now made fun of their upbringing. However, that wasn't contempt. Insecurity was the cause. The need to remove themselves from a persistent past and rewrite the story by projecting wealth and authority. Kody was not married to Robyn. He took a chance. Other spouses stroll their faith as well as their sacrifice. Robyn noticed a change. A damaged home, a struggling man, and the possibility of rewriting the rules. And she performed flawlessly throughout the game. He was overweight and had stretch marks, but he made romance work. It was a compliment, as Robyn would say. Though it wasn't. It served as a critique and a reminder that the other women gave up and let things get worse. Robyn had no desire for Kody. She claimed his midlife crisis for herself and wanted to be better than everyone else. After season 13, everything was different. Kody started acting strangely aggressive, unstable, manic, and unpredictable. He exuded wild energy akin to a man on synthetic substances. Steroids, testosterone, and other strong substances don't boost confidence and decrease empathy. She had Robyn just where she needed him. Kody's spiral in the background. His physical fixation, his melodramatic outbursts, and even his odd flexing in a filthy lake didn't seem like the behavior of a man with a peaceful foundation. Fans' rumors about variations in testosterone levels. The moment was ideal. Kody was frantically trying to stay in the picture and stay wanted while Robyn was having difficulties. The transfer to Flagstaff, however, was the actual change. It just so happened that Robyn's son Dayton was accepted to the college. It just so happens that Kody fell in love with the town. A few days prior to the start of the semester, the family incidentally moved. And they don't care about the other children. Dayton needed Robyn around because of his aspersors. Perhaps, Robyn replies, but if so, why move the whole family? Why not let him go to school alone like Hunter or Madison? Robyn wanted to be in charge. And she got it from Kody. Hunter and other kids gave up everything, their friends and their future, because a wife said, jump. The self-appointed leader replied, how high? Kody remained silent when he was pushed back. He intensified. I'm not sorry for railroading you. It was scary to confront Christine. Kody used a therapy session to seize a, turning a metaphorical rock tower workout into a mental assault. It has nothing to do with bridge construction. It has to do with claiming authority. Additionally, the therapist was carrying a paper teacup. Christine would have none of it. For decades, she had maintained the family's financial stability and raised all but one of the children. Furthermore, she was now being told that her value was determined by a system that no longer gave a damn about her. She then departed, with the precise accuracy of someone who had already excused herself inside, neither hastily or foolishly. Years in the past, she had already stepped out of the room by the time she left. And because Christine didn't abandon him, Kody responded aggressively rather than regretfully. She revealed him. Then there was the simultaneous Vegas selling of houses that had been thrown onto the market. It was the best moment, according to Kody. Though it wasn't. The value of those houses subsequently doubled. However, he required a story to explain the move to Flagstaff. Therefore, he produced a play, Vague Assurances, and a real estate disaster that cost a lot to the family. But as Robyn wanted to live close to Dayton, Kody also wanted to be close to Robyn. It was unrelated to the market or to maintaining family harmony. It was entirely related to control. Furthermore, the cycle continued. Kody chastises Janelle for calling off a family gathering in episode 3 of season 18. He never tried to talk to her, but he blames her and the boys for spoiling the holidays. He didn't call. He simply waited for them all to approach him. That's Kody's weakness. He believes that everyone else is the sun. Must revolve around him. He pouts, moans, or places the blame on them when they don't. Janelle was the antagonist since she never forced the males to apologize. Robyn went on. Instead of the other way around, Kody was supposed to come to the lads. It was an obvious message. Send in or fail. It's loyalty, not love. And Kody's outburst is the best example of that. Not because he would miss her, but because Christine departed without pleading. Kody desired a pursuit. He fell when no one pursued him. Separate sister wives ended up being more repulsive than a reality show. It turned into a practice in narcissism, emotional manipulation, and the gradual, agonizing dissolution of a family under the guise of unity. Robyn did more than upset the equilibrium. She changed its conditions. And because Kody valued power over peace, he allowed her. Bonding was not as reassuring as control. The rest of the family had to pay for it. Finally, when it appeared that the dust had cleared, a fresh ripple appeared, one that had been seething underneath the surface the entire time. An old friend who was still involved with the Brown family unexpectedly called Christine, who had long since left the whirlpool. It wasn't just a conversation call. It served as a warning. The voice trembled across the phone. Christine, there's more to it than you realize. Robyn has been talking to attorneys. Christine's fingers gripped her phone more tightly. Attorneys? Which attorneys? After a pause and a breath, inheritance followed. Property. She is attempting to seize more than he ought to. No one still believes her when she says it's for the children. For Christine, it was a haunting reminder of the history of war. She was aware of Robyn's talent for storytelling, particularly in emotionally charged situations. However, it was no longer just drama. It was heritage theft. Christine couldn't turn off the alarm, but she didn't want to go back in. In the meantime, Janelle sat in her small rental house, grieving, alone, and now wondering what everyone was up to. The house was quiet but for the rushing wind against the window panes. She scrolled through previous texts. She received messages from Christine, Garrison, and Kody, and she was struck with a cold realization. Who is left to have faith? The lineage of the family has cooled. There was silence in the group messages. After the funeral, Kody hadn't given a call or spoken anything. But there had been one strange communication from Robyn. Although everyone grieves differently, Don't allow resentment to rob the children of what is rightfully theirs. Struck me as a bitterness. The woman who remained faithful to Kody when the other wives were inconsolable, Robyn, dared to preach about grief. The punch, however, was not yet delivered. Meri shared a mysterious Instagram update in the middle of the night, showing a picture of an old dusty deed with the caption, "Some signatures are written in desperation, not agreement." The internet lost its mind. People dissected every inch of the image, and one Redditor superimposed the document style onto property transfer forms from the online database of the state of Arizona. As a result, a few days following Garrison's passing, someone, possibly Kody or Robyn, had attempted to transfer land titles. In order to avoid cameras, producers and most especially Robyn, Christine, Meri, and Janelle organized a secret meeting. It was held in a friend's farmhouse in Flagstaff, which served as a middle ground. They brought binders full of old receipts and digital copies of contracts. Punishment wasn't the goal. Preservation was a straightforward matter. Openness. Tensions at Robyn and Kody's house were on the verge of erupting into a volcano eruption. The question that Ariel asked cut deeper than anyone could have imagined. Why do the other mothers no longer visit? Kody froze, motionless. Robyn was astounded. It was more difficult to deal with the child's naivete. The stunned quiet that followed Ariela's inquiry told it all, even for the most combative interviewer. Not everything was broken. They had been deliberately taken apart. That night, Robyn made a decision. A regional podcast that focused on candid, uncompromising family interviews interviewed her one-on-one. She wished to rectify the situation. However, Meri, Janelle, and Christine moved ahead of her. The three women started a blog called Truths We Never Got to Tell 1 week prior to Robyn's premiere. The Financial Games Behind Coyote Pass was the title of the first post. The emails between Kody and the former family accountant for the Browns were dated, documented, and included exact statements from legal. It had grown from a whisper to a roar. Robyn put off showing up for her pod appearance. Through his business advisor, Kody did release a statement expressing his amazement at the betrayal and sensationalization of allegations by ladies he had previously trusted, but the audience no longer believed him. An anonymous post made by a former member of the TLC staff only made people feel awful. It stated, "Before Christine's official departure, there were talks about taking her off the show. She was not wanted to be heard. Can you guess who it is?" Robyn's reputation was starting to crumble. Hurried. Christine, on the other hand, was reveling in her role as the whistleblower after years of silence. After years, Meri was ultimately given more authority, and she followed up with a live stream where she read passages from an ancient notebook, verifying dates and events that supported fan theories. Rumors. Janelle was filming on her phone while sitting still on a wooden bench in the garden. Raw speech, no lighting, no production. "I almost lost myself after losing a son, but I will not compromise the truth." Silently, the tension grew until it suddenly erupted like a volcano. In addition to crying, Robyn's eyes were blurry from witnessing the collapse of the house of cards she had painstakingly constructed. Despite being level, Christine's voice was incredibly crisp. "You were aware. Don't act fake. Otherwise." Kody shifted uneasily, his jaw clenched. He wasn't yelling and defending for once. He was just silent. A disquieting silence fell, the kind that precedes an impending storm. Robyn turned to him for solace, but the guy who had so vehemently spoken up for her had been absorbed in his own turmoil. Christine went on to say, "Don't sit here crying over a family you didn't try to save. You saw what was happening. You helped cause what happened." A wrecking ball was the towel. Viewers paused, rewinded, and played it again. Theories on the internet become unmanageable. Had Christine simply hinted that Robyn was behind the scenes tampering with everything? Was Robyn not the ultimate master manipulator who had subtly forced Kody away from his first wives, rather than a defenseless victim? The floods began to flow. Equipped with years of suppressed information, Christine targeted Kody and you. "You repeatedly changed the course of history. You misled us, the cameras, and above all to oneself." The emotional toll of finally uttering the treason she had suffered out loud caused her voice to break slightly, not from of weakness. It was too late for Kody to interrupt. The air already carried the truth. By the second, Robyn's meticulously practiced makeup was leaking. Grumbling, "I tried," she said. Christine's head tilted in shock as she said, "I really did try to connect." "Did you?" "Because it appeared to be rather similar from where I was standing." "You awaited our departure." The ensuing hush was oppressive. Even the host, who is usually prepared with a well-timed intervention from a mediator, was unable to speak. The cracks in the Brown family weren't simply apparent at that point. Janelle put a hand on Christine's knee, not to stop her but to reassure her, "You're not alone. They couldn't be fixed." Producers rushed off screen. This degree of rawness was unexpected. Silently rolling cameras recorded every cry, every bit of unvarnished truth made me cringe. Meanwhile, hashtags like #KodyCaught and #ChristineExposes Robyn exploded on social media and fan forums. They felt vindicated, the crowd thought. The majority had long suspected Robyn's implicit power. What they had instinctively sensed was now confirmed by Christine. However, the silence was broken by Meri's voice just as the dust had started to settle. Straightforwardly, "I stayed too long," she stated. She didn't sound angry, and I remained mute for too long. It was determined, and for Meri, it was all about getting back the voice she had lost years before, not about assigning blame. Kody's face hardened. "You had options," he informed her. Meri answered, "You did. And you created the worst ones imaginable." Robyn spoke a barely discernible murmur. "Why are you treating us like this?" Christine gave her another look. "Since we provided you with chances, we granted you years. However, you never considered us to be your sisters. Only barriers." There was more to this than drama. This was a collapse. The barriers of denial had collapsed, and reality took their place. Sincere, agonizing, unalterable truth. And onlookers, they were captivated. Before the show's third installment had aired, its teasers were already smashing TLC's YouTube records. Nevertheless, Christine's parting remarks that evening carried a deeper meaning. "We made it through. That concludes our tale." However, neither Christine nor any of them realized that the last nail in the coffin had not yet been pounded in. There was one more secret that Robyn needed to keep, and someone was going to spill it. As the rain cascaded down the agony like 1,000 tears, Janelle stood quietly by the window. Her thoughts seemed to reverberate with all of the unsaid words. The gap created by Garrison's death between her and Kody was too great to be filled by courteous discourse and lovely family dinners. It wasn't lost, though. It was treachery. Years of negligence were to blame. It was the acknowledged sacrifices that she had made in order for Robyn to live a happy life. That morning, Christine had arrived. Her hug was sweet, but her look was stern. Christine muttered, "He wouldn't want us to break up like this." And she gave Janelle the kind of hug that only someone who has experienced your suffering can do. But even so, she was aware of Garrison's words. Death didn't just break the family. It uncovered all the cracks that had been smoldering for so long. Kody was visibly distressed as he stood in front of the memorial, holding a rumpled sheet of paper shuddered in his grasp. However, Janelle found his statements to be inauthentic when he stood up to speak. "He was a light in our lives," Kody said of Garrison. Weak voice, but it didn't seem to be about him. It sounded practiced, as like he was feigning his sorrow and not experiencing it. Then Meri got to her feet. The weight of introspection was in her unusually serene voice. Garrison made a concerted effort to win over everyone. He grinned even when he was in pain. A gentle communal. The crowd let out a gasp. For the first time, someone had mentioned that Garrison wasn't feeling well. Not for a long time, in fact. Janelle was at her breaking point. She took a step closer and met Kody's gaze. "When he needed you, you weren't there." Now, no amount of tears can reverse that. The atmosphere became charged. Janelle was caught by Christine's outstretched hand, but it was too late. The truth was out. It also couldn't be forced back into concealment once it had. Stunned, Kody looked down at the page. His scripted phrases were no longer important as he clutched. I didn't know," he said in a low voice. "But everyone knew that wasn't okay. Not now." Christine, Janelle, and Meri sat in the kitchen that night at the house. It was electrifying in the room. Meri finally said something. Flatly, she said, "I read the messages." Robyn didn't respond to the ones Garrison sent pleadingly. "Never." Christine's jaw tightened. Nevertheless, she sits there in tears as though she had lost her own son. The fact that she couldn't even reply to him was harsh, exposed, genuine, and Janelle could no longer contain her tears. He pleaded with her. She muttered. She disregarded his pleas for Kody to speak with him. After, the camera would move to show Robyn alone at home, holding a necklace that Garrison had given her years prior to things going wrong. She cried. The silence surrounding her, however, had shifted. It wasn't quiet. It was critical. Memories overtook her. They never read the text. Birthdays were overlooked. Additionally, calls were dropped. A path of disregard that has resulted in grief. Knowing that Garrison's loss would always be with her, Janelle gazed into the night once more. However, the deception continued, and just when the family believed the terrible news had peaked, a concealed voicemail reappeared. Only a few weeks prior, one Garrison had departed for Kody. The final words faded into static. Dad, if you ever care enough to call back, I just want to know why. Why don't I matter anymore? All of Kody's secrets, which he attempted to conceal, were included in the static. The hand of Christine strayed back into Janelle's. We'll make sure the world hears him, she whispered, and they would, because silence had already cost too much. The morning after the confrontation hung over the family like a thick cloud of tension from a curse no one dared to break. Kody's silence now weighed like a storm ready to be let loose, and he stood on the porch of his rented Flagstaff home, clutching a coffee cup as a lifeline, looking out at the far-off land of Coyote Pass, which had once been a beacon of unity, now appeared to be a battlefield, with every patch of ground and every tree vibrating with the ghosts of arguments, broken promises and ruined dreams. Robyn paced around the room, her anxiety not hidden, and her children had sensed the change in her mood. An oppressive cloud of fear hovered in the air, and Aurora told Brianna that something was going to go awry, and Solomon even asked why. Christine was in Utah, standing in the kitchen where she was making truly SL, but her eyes were not focused on the sandwich. Instead, they were scanning her phone, rereading a text message from a producer. Robyn tried her best to remain composed, but the lies she had made up had begun to unravel. Her jewelry business had collapsed in front of the cameras, and fans were now questioning whether she ever loved the family or just her own image. They will never stop until all the lies are exposed. In Flagstaff, Meri opened an envelope without a return address, and inside was a stack of printed screenshots, old messages and other footage. It's terrible. Kody knew more than he confessed. Her heart sank. How much more deceit had they not yet discovered? She looked up as David entered the room, noticing the worried expression on her pale face. "What is it?" he asked softly. She handed him the phone and he scanned the message before gently putting it down. This was not a broken marriage. Rather, it was a long-planned betrayal. At the same time, Janelle was sitting in front of the package that was rightfully hers at Coyote Pass, boots crunching on gravel, holding the most recent land appraisal records, and it was evident that Robyn's parcel had been stolen. Timestamps and one horrifying photo. Kody kissing Robyn in front of a courthouse months before Meri and Kody had even announced that they were split up. She collapsed. She gritted her teeth and said, "So this is how it ends." She complained, "They're still trying to cheat me even after all of this." The family meeting had been postponed, but not by a vote, and Kody sent a cold, detached text that read, "Last discussion regarding Coyote Pass. I must come through." Christine didn't want to go and Janelle considered skipping it, but Meri was unaware of it. The promise of either chaos or closure drew them together that night. "We're dividing the land according to who invested most recently." Meri's eyes widened. "You mean Robyn?" Janelle jumped out of her seat. "This is robbery." Christine took out her phone, scrolled through text messages and pressed to play an audio recording. Kody's own words from a year ago, promising equal splits. Muttering. Suki looked dazed. "That's your idea, Kody." The scene faded with Kody leaving again, but Suki stayed behind. "Kody, are you scared that the truth will finally cost you everything?" He was motionless for a moment, but he simply continued walking. The fallout from Meri's confession didn't end in that dimly lit living room. Like a ripple in stagnant water, it spread quickly, arousing everyone. Robyn interrupted. "Can you explain what happened?" Robyn interrupted. "We're the only ones still committed to this family." "Family?" Christine snapped. "Or inheritance?" Echoes in the deepest corners of the Brown household. What came next was nothing short of emotional devastation. Despite his obvious shake, Kody ran to Robyn's house, but there was no peace there. Robyn, looking pale and quiet, sat on the edge of the sofa while Kody strode back and forth across the hardwood floor. "Don't lie to me," he hissed, his voice tense with anger. "You knew something, didn't you?" "I knew, but I didn't want to think about it," Robyn said, blinking, her eyes glimmering with agony. In Utah, Christine had already heard the news and her phone buzzed. "I thought maybe you and she would make it work. I didn't know she'd blow it." But Kody didn't worry about sympathy. Instead, he worried about control, answers, and most importantly, knowing how much damage had been done. With Meri's truth hanging in the air like smoke after a fire, every fragile thread he had used to hold the family together was unraveling. Constantly receiving clips of Meri's breakdown from friends, producers, and even distant relatives, she sat in her kitchen with David behind her, looking at the TV with a sense of justification but emotional distress. "Do you feel a sense of relief?" With his palm lightly touching hers, David asked, causing Christine's eyes to tear up. "It's not winning, David," she said. "It's just surviving," she finally murmured aloud, ceasing to shield him. Christine wasn't the only one who noticed. This was the voice above one of them finally laying it out. Janelle's voice cracked when she spoke to her daughter, "Savannah, honey, I think it's time we talk." All of this nonsense happened while the TLC producers frantically worked to turn what was supposed to be a tearful reunion segment into a volatile one. Janelle sat in silence with a cup of tea, watching Meri's raw confession play on repeat. Powder keg of bombs. "Should we air this as is, or should we cut some of it?" The director leaned over to his assistant and said hurriedly. The executive producers responded quickly. "We broadcast it without any edits." On social media, the family once again acted as though everything was normal, but behind closed doors, the last hours of that week arrived with a chill more icy than the mountain winds that swept over Flagstaff. This is what the public has been waiting to see. The gaps between the Browns grew like enormous canyons, and Robyn, who remained silent, grew more and more alone with each new discovery. Janelle sat on her back porch, a journal open across her knees, staring at a blank page, her hand shaking as she tried to write anything, but the words would not come out. She could only think of Garrison. His absence was a void. She could still see his face when he told her he could no longer bear the chronic dysfunction, pleading with her to finally leave for good, his request haunting her every day now that he was gone. Christine and David had driven up from Utah to see Janelle, and at first the two women sat quietly, their silence filled with the warmth of shared pain, until the stars began to light up the Arizona night, and Christine said quietly, "You know, we're never going to get the apology that we deserve." "No," Janelle nodded. "I do, but we have to live for us, for our children." The atmosphere had grown chilly inside Robyn's house, and Kody was pacing once more, his classic storm simmering just behind his grudging nods of peace. He had called Meri, but she refused to answer, texted Janelle, but got no response, and even Christine had blocked his number. When Aurora and Brianna invited him to dinner and asked him if he was going to make amends, Kody lost his composure. Not at them, but at the situation. He yelled, "They're rewriting history. I gave everything to that family, and now they're portraying me as this sort of villain." Even Robyn didn't jump to his defense this time. Instead, she sat looking down at her plate, prodding the food with a fork she didn't intend to use. The cracks were also starting in their supposedly strong marriage. Meri finally spoke out in a surprise move when she did so in a live interview rather than a TLC clip or Instagram statement. One sentence rocked the sister wives' world. Forums erupted with news, Reddit forums blew up, and even the mainstream media covered it. Meri, calm but candid, wrote about decades of emotional abuse, her guilt at being the first legal wife to allow it to happen, and her realization that loyalty to dysfunction is still dysfunction in her small podcast, which is well known for its uncensored and raw opinions. The most devastating blow of all was a leaked court document that suggested Janelle was requesting retroactive child support based on charges of financial abandonment of several of her children specifically. For years, Kody and Robyn were splurging on designer handbags and clothes while she could barely afford pencil boxes and school supplies. Kody had tried to push through during the tell-alls so he could rebuild it more quickly, making it into a battle. He yelled at an unidentified TLC producer over the phone, but the producer, who was apparently fed up with Kody's antics, shot back, "You started the war, Kody." The last blow, Robyn's last stand and Kody's collapsing empire. As the family drama nears its conclusion, the emotional stream surges into a tidal wave, and the camera focuses on Robyn, who was previously protected by Kody's unwavering loyalty and is now being. Christine's tone is one of indignation as she reveals the inequality of feelings. It was never plural marriage to them, it was control. Her statements cut deep, especially when she describes the inequality of how Robyn was protected and cared for, while the other wives were to endure in pain. Her defenses, clam-like silence, vacuous excuses, and tears are all brought to light one by one as the truths she has attempted to conceal are exposed. Favoritism. It's about the gradual decline of her own value in a marriage with an all-pervading favorite queen. Janelle, who has always maintained her composure, now trembles, not out of weakness but rather from repressed anger, as she explains how Robyn changed everything. There was a time that we were a family. Then Robyn arrived and the rules were broken. And when I spoke up about it, I was the enemy. Meri, who has been the most publicly loyal person to date, violates the last unwritten rule. She doesn't attend Robyn's. Instead, she authenticates the feelings of many. I was the diversion. Robyn was the destination. Even the kids start to speak up. Gabriel's pre-recorded interview chills the audience. He whispers, "I tried calling him on my birthday. He didn't return any calls." The Brown family wound is no longer theoretical, it's transgenerational. The phrases are straightforward, but the silence that follows is excruciating. Kody's demeanor shifts from blustery and arrogant to Suki taunts him more than ever, asking, "Couldn't it be that you were more dedicated to one relationship than to the others? I gave everything to this family and they left me, yet his complaints sound phony." He is now guarded and almost paranoid. He stammers, his well-practiced responses breaking apart. Robyn finally speaks, but her words lack coherence and she sobs, not for the hurt done but for the fantasy's demise. "I only wanted peace, I only wanted us all to be content. We aren't returning and neither are your children. This was your legacy, Kody. And you chose one wife over all of us. That was your downfall." Christine adds it all with cold composure. The camera pans out, showing empty chairs that were once filled with love, laughter, and conflict but are now symbols of what could have been. The story ends on a note of responsibility rather than closure. As the credits roll, we catch a glimpse of the women after the Brown family. Christine laughing with, "This family's drama is far from over, so if you're #TeamWives, feel free to subscribe for the next explosive update and leave a comment below. Who do you think will win? Stay shady, stay curious, and I'll see you in the future." David in a cozy living room, Janelle strolling through a farmer's market with the grandkids, Meri greeting a retreat at her B&B with a smile that is finally authentic, and Robyn, a figure behind drawn curtains. Kiss mark behind TLC in the upcoming scandal.